to cover here, so let's get into some of those.
We always have too many topics and not enough time.
That's all right.
That's okay.
There's another month coming up. We can.
That's right. We can always
talk
cover
about
next
it then.
month. Yep.
Okay. You mentioned you want to talk about what you've got here for employment.
Right. We're thinking next spring we're going to be looking for another technical person, and we'd like to start getting resumes in for that. And when I talk technical, it'd be for field work, like working with the CRP program, working with our cover crop program, possibly doing some media work, things like that. So if you're so inclined and you're interested in working in a local conservation organization, we don't care if you're from Iowa or Illinois, it doesn't matter. Ship a resume over to us. And if you have any questions, you can call 815-772-2124 extension 3, and I'd be glad to talk to you about it. If I'm not there, which the odds are this time of year I may not be, I'll certainly get back to you as soon as I can. But we're looking for it's full-time employment. There's benefits, of course, and we can discuss that on the phone if you want to give us a call. So, But we are we do have a job opening. There may be a part-time opening too, but I'm not sure about that yet. So, but for sure a full-time opening.
Okay.
So
now, can they email it?
Yeah, email's fine. If they call, I'll get you my email, and they can certainly ship it through the wires or the air, whatever the case may be. So
right, well,
you bet.
Good luck on that.
Yes, thanks.
So let's go up to, you mentioned cover crop.
Yeah, that seems to be a popular topic with me. And there's a couple reasons. One, it's a great practice. The other thing, I think you're going to see some federal programs that emphasize carbon storage. And one of the practices that carbon is stored by are cover crops and no-till. Those two things. So if you can start in a small basis and get going, there's a chance you may hit a program here in the next year or two that will reimburse you for some of your expenses and maybe give you a payment even too. There's some talk about that. It hasn't been finalized yet, but starting your cover crop now is a good idea. In Illinois, most of the soil and water districts have a cost share program too. We can help with the expense, at least on a 40-acre chunk. It's not a lot of money, but it helps a little bit. That's available, so you can give me a call on that. The other thing is I got a call from the University of Illinois Extension Program coordinator for Northwestern Illinois. She's a water quality coordinator, and she said that there may be a free seed program again. We ran this several years ago, and I think we were booked up and within 15 minutes of me saying something about it. But there's a chance we're going to have cereal rye available this fall. So if you want to get put on the list, I don't have the seed yet. I don't know how much, but she was talking about a substantial amount. So if that's the case, get on the list, and if it comes about, we'll certainly get you some free rye seed. So let me know about that. The other thing is, if you're going to do a lot of seeding, cover crop seeding this fall, I would order your seed now. Don't wait, because the inventory is getting really, really short. Some of my distributors I've talked to have said that there's a chance, one, the price is going to go up, which everything has the last few months, and two, the availability may be fairly low. So if you haven't reserved your rye or your turnips or oats or whatever you're going to seed this fall, I would do it soon. Don't wait too long, because you may not be able to get it. So hopefully you've already got that sewed up and a price in place. But if you haven't, I would call your seed distributor as soon as possible. So that's the other thing on that.
Okay. Deer season.
Yeah, deer season's coming up. I know Iowa and Illinois, the bow season's open in October. Gun seasons for Illinois is November. For Iowa, the first one's in December, where it's nice and cold and snowy, which I don't blame you guys for doing that. I think the way you're doing it is a great way to perpetuate the herd. That's another subject, though. Just a couple things, though. If you haven't shot your bow yet, get out and get your bow shot. Make sure those arrows are going where they're at. If you haven't sighted in your slug gun, this is a great time to do it before it gets real cold, and make sure those slugs are hitting where you want them to be. The other thing is, before the season begins, if you haven't already, check your tree stands and make sure they're secure to the tree. Every year there's somebody that falls out of a stand in Illinois and gets hurt really, really bad. A friend of mine fell 3 years ago broke both legs. He's lucky he didn't die. For one thing, he fell 20 feet. And he had spinal injuries. He ended up with rods in both of his legs. I think he busted his collarbone too. And he was in the hospital, and I think he ended up with 5 surgeries afterwards. So it's dangerous. Check your harnesses too. Those things sometimes, and what happened to him, he tied a knot on the back of the harness to a rope, and the knot gave way. Everything else held. The stand shifted when he was in it. He fell, thinking he was going to get caught by the rope, and slowed down. The knot gave way. So check those knots, check all your fittings on your harnesses, and make sure you're safe in those trees. That's the number one hunting accident that happens. It's not people getting shot. It's people falling out of tree stands. So it's a very preventable thing, but do a little homework ahead of time. You'll be fine. So,
and they leave that up pretty much year round.
Yeah, most of the tree stands. I think on most of the state sites you have to take them down after the season, but everything on private grounds, it's permanent. It's normally left up. The other thing you have to be aware of too is trees grow, and sometimes those chains or the straps have a lot of pressure on them from the tree actually growing and expanding. And make sure you loosen them or tighten them according to what the tree's doing. And for whatever you do, do not put a tree stand in a dead tree. Every year on public ground, I walk through them and I see dead elm trees in particular. They've got tree stands, and that's the worst thing in the world you can do. You don't know what condition that wood's in. It may be rotten in the middle. You get a good winter, and all of a sudden you're going down with the tree. So don't put them in dead trees. Put them in live trees, as straight as possible. But check the chains, check the straps, and make sure everything's tight and secure.
Okay. Now, our next topic, teal season.
Yeah, those little ducks that come through early. From what I understand, I've talked to a few people that hunted on the Iowa side, because Iowa starts about a week earlier in Illinois, and they had a real good shoot. There were a lot of birds coming through. Illinois is still open, and I would imagine with the warm weather, the teal are still hanging around. So if you can find a kind of a secluded spot, normally teal like really, really shallow water, 6 inches maybe to 12 inches, and they like a lot of vegetation. So if you can find those open spots around vegetated wetlands, you should have a pretty good shot. The blue wings are in. I haven't heard a lot about the green wings yet. Usually they're a later migrator, but the blue wings are certainly in the area right now. So go out and enjoy it.
Yeah, I've been noticing a lot of flocks of geese and ducks.
Well, the other thing that's happened, Illinois and I think Iowa both have. Illinois' late or early goose season is over. I'm not sure about Iowa's, if they're still shooting or not, but that might be the reason you're seeing those big flocks of geese right now too. The whole advent of that season was to reduce the amount of damage on golf courses, subdivisions, places where there were retention ponds and mowed grass, which is absolutely perfect for geese. And that was done to get those numbers down. So hopefully you've taken advantage of that. But I know in Illinois, the 15th was the last day on that. So.
Yeah, there's a lot where I live.
Yep.
There's like 3 blocks that are all cleared off along the river, and they have been filled with geese.
Yeah. Well, and geese are a lot like sheep in that they'll graze grass like that, and like sheep, they don't cut the grass off. What they do is they physically grab the plant and pull it out. So they will denude an area. If you get 50 or 60 geese in there over the span of a week, and that's why there's such a bad thing on a golf course. They eat all the grass, and and they leave souvenirs afterwards, of course. But there is. Both states have early seasons to get rid of those resident flocks or reduce their numbers at least. I don't know that you'll ever get rid of them, but reduce the numbers.
Well, let's go to the next topic: fall tillage during the a dry year like we had.
I suspect that this is going to be a real early harvest. In fact, over by Fulton, there's been fields already done. And I drove down to Erie yesterday, and there was combining going on already. So it's going to be an early season, early harvest. And typically what happens if it's dry, guys get done combining, they get the tractors out and start chiseling or tilling. In a dry year, that could be the worst thing you do. Unless we get some really prolonged rains here this fall and some decent snowfalls, we're going to go into next spring with a deficiency in soil moisture. And that's not a good deal. As we found out this year, the water runs out when it's 90 degrees and it's windy, it's gone. And the more moisture you can conserve this fall, the better off you are. So if you can delay tillage until spring, I would suggest it this year, because tillage dries things out. As soon as you turn that ground over, it just sucks the moisture right out of it. And I don't see any big wet spells coming up in the long-term forecast. There's some cool weather predicted, but I don't know when. Maybe in the next 2 weeks, but moisture-wise, it's pretty iffy right now. So if you can possibly hold off on the tillage until spring, that would be my suggestion. Take advantage as much of the soil moisture as you can right now, and leave a cover of residue out there, or cover crop, and let that moisture stay in the ground for now. So.
Okay. Carbon storage is our next topic.
Yeah, I mentioned that under cover crops. If I was farming right now, I'd be looking into ways that you can conserve carbon and keep it in the soil. Like I said, I think you're going to see some programs coming that will reward you for that. The President administration is big on carbon storage, and one of the things they're looking at is farm ground. And what that means for you is if you're doing some carbon saving things like cover crops, no-till, more than likely you're going to get rewarded for that. It may take a year or two, but there's some preliminary things coming out of Washington. There will be an ag carbon storage program. So stay tuned for that one.
Okay. And number 6, we're going to get through.
Boy. Yeah, get through. This is Dave's soapbox here.
Okay. CRP mowing.
Yeah. 90% of the seedings I checked that were done this past spring and last winter were not mowed until well into August, which is a disaster. If you have CRP and you get a chance to seed it, make sure you keep it mowed starting in May all the way through probably August, and you'll be real happy with your results. If you don't mow it until August, especially in a dry year like this, the weeds take all the moisture, and more than likely your seeding is going to fail. And the FSA office may then require you to seed it at your own expense. So, keep those mowed the first and second year. After that, then you don't have to mow it. But the first and second year, it's really important. So.
Real good. Well, we've been talking with Dave Harrison from the Whiteside County Soil and Water Conservation District, and
we made it.
Out of the hour,
we did all the topics. We made it, Greg.
That's right. Okay, thanks, Dave. Talk
Thank
to
you.
Next month, Gary.
Keep it on the down low here.
Is the Dan Patrick Show.
There's probably 3 or 4 games for every team where you look back and go, man, we're lucky, or we should have won that game. If I'm Dallas with Dak Prescott, that was very impressive for somebody who comes back from a devastating injury.